for a lot of use cases, you would be better off to be classically trained as a programmer than a data scientist in today's world. The position I'm in, I'm very fortunate to talk to a lot of very big companies, and I see most of the time they don't even have a PhD on staff. Like, it's a lot of data engineers, people that have done it before. They've worked with maybe PhDs in the past. But one of the beauties of the data science community is, and this didn't used to be the case, there wasn't a lot of sort of content to really chew on. So a lot of what you would find is sort of like the published papers and things like that. And for, someone that's not classically trained, that's like a foreign language, what's in those papers. So then you come out with like the libraries that Python has and things like that. And that helped tremendously, but that's still very technical in nature. But now these days you have like the blog towards data science and a lot of other things where someone is starting from the beginning to explain, or the code samples out there start from the beginning. They don't assume certain things and sort of toss you in right at the sort of feature extraction and vectorization and things like that. It sort of talks about the things before that. So I think that's why a lot of people, you don't necessarily need to be classically trained. And in many ways, I would argue for a lot of use cases, you would be better off to be classically trained as a programmer than a data scientist in today's world, because you got things where off-the-shelf libraries, you can sort of feed those things in. You've got SageMaker from AWS. You've got things that sort of help you along, and you always have to understand the theories and things because you want to understand what is being outputted from your model. But in the real world, we see a lot of times these companies that are AI startups and things like that, or the AI things inside of large companies, are not driven by the PhDs. So I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, something I want to echo what you said is that the programming skill set, there's a bit of a premium on that. And I completely agree. I think that if I was starting to learn data science, I would want to understand the programming first, because that lets me implement all these things. It lets me get my hands dirty. It lets me experiment and try things out. If we're focusing on the statistics and the math to start with, which I think you should absolutely have a solid grasp of the theory, you can't iterate as quickly. I can't like plug stuff into a model and see it spit stuff out. I'm doing just what you're saying. I'm doing like vector multiplication, right? And so, or linear algebra, whatever that is. And so, to me, I went back and did a full-blown master's in computer science rather than data science, because that's the skill set that I thought would pay the most dividends going forward.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And I see, for us, we look at, when I say us, I mean my company Panyo, but even me as an individual, if I look at like why initiatives have failed and the initiatives that I've had to personally build in the past, one of the things that's very hard is you've got sort of your data science team that can build that sort of MVP, but to sort of productize or productionize something like that is almost as hard as the data science itself. And what a lot of companies do is they take that MVP from the data science team, they sort of throw it over the fence to the engineers and the DevOps, and that's where a lot of things go wrong, because it's not fully understood where some simple things like casting a floating point as an integer, that's basically in data science turning something with a very precise number into a Boolean. Like, that can be catastrophic to a model. Yeah. So there's these things that aren't well understood for a traditional software engineer. So there's that gap between, traditional software engineering and machine learning, and it is very big right now. So when you come in as a data engineer or a data scientist, and you don't have to be an expert, but if you're an intermediate with Python, skill-wise, you can provide immense value in closing that gap. I've personally had to train people to be that bridge, and it's basically the combination of a DevOps person moving into ML ops. Those are the people I sort of had to train to make sure that bridge happens successfully. And even now, like so Adam, who I worked with and mentioned previously, he's the PhD, so he didn't really know much Python at all. He was sort of, mostly R. And so now he moves so much into Python, and I helped him sort of improve his skill set so much with Python, and then hiring people that were experts to help him as well. He now teaches Spark at the university. So with Python. So, you know, it's an immense skill. And one of the reasons why I see in the real world, data scientists spend like 90% of their time not doing machine learning. You know, they're doing all the other stuff, the data prep, the cleaning, all that, and before they can actually get to the heavy lifting. Some of that's just the labor's not there in the market, so just a necessary evil. But yeah, it's that skill set is incredibly valuable these days.
Yeah, well,
right now, not even in the future, like right now.